And welcome back to Real Talk Sports with Rico. Today, I will be your host. Today's show, we are actually talking about just the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments. Essentially, today, what I'm going to be doing is recapping what happened to the Final Four there for the men's basketball, and then talking about a preview here for tomorrow night's championship game, and then just giving a brief kind of rundown here of the NCAA women's tournament here. So, before we actually jump into the content, first and foremost, I want to thank Anchor for being our platform, which is now Spotify Podcast. You can check out the show there, and that link will be in the show notes. You also, too, are looking at the YouTube channel right now, which is Real Talk Sports with Rico. You can follow the episodes there. Essentially, we post up every Sunday here, and you will see that again in the show notes here. And make sure that you definitely go ahead and press the like and subscribe button if you are watching here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump into the content, guys. And let's start off here with the NCAA men's basketball recap here. So we had 4 games essentially taking place here, all for just or 2 games, excuse me, took place here for 2 spots here for the NCAA championship game. And it was quite a doozy. And I think for the first time in all the tournament, I actually might have got it right here. I got to go back and check here. I don't know if I picked FAU. I might have picked FAU, but they did take a tough one here. And the first game here was FAU and San Diego State, which actually literally came down to the last second here in the it was a buzzer beater. It absolutely was a buzzer beater here. And it was pretty epic with what happened. I mean, you look at FSU, they had a chance to pretty much salt the game away. All they needed to do was get a layup, and they missed the layup. And then on the other end, you had, excuse me, you had Butler for San Diego State kind of come down. They didn't call a timeout, and he was able to actually go ahead and set himself up for a critical jump shot, which essentially iced the game here. And when they asked the coach after the game why he didn't call a timeout, he jokingly said he ran out of plays here. But Lamont Butler was the hero in this one, coming down and making that play at the end of the game, ending FAU's run. And FAU really did everything that they were supposed to do in this game. And the irony about this is that FAU came in and they attacked San Diego State in many different ways. They exploited different matchups. They were able to go ahead and use a lot of ball reversal techniques. Were really getting downhill on the guards and things like that, which was very surprising because on paper, San Diego State actually had the better defense, and they had actually been holding people to under 60 a game. And so for them to come out and shoot as well as they did, I believe FAU shot 5 of 11 throughout the tournament. I think most teams were either 4 of 35 or some kind of crazy stat that I was looking at as far as shooting 3-point shots against them. And so the fact that they were able to exploit them and shoot over the 17% is amazing. But the fact that San Diego State locked down so much in the second half, it reminded me a lot of what happened with the Xavier Kinshaw State game, where Xavier was down by a lot and they just locked up for about 4, 5, 6 minutes in the second half, and they kept scoring and they were able to get back into the game. And that's exactly what San Diego State did. Now, it took them down to the last second to get it done, but better late than never. And so that's a huge win there for San Diego State, making it into the championship game here. Shout out here to Elijah Martin and the way he played for FAU. He's been stellar for them. When you look at his statistics and what he was able to do, he had the 26 points and 7 rebounds. You know, on the other side of this thing, you had San Diego State's best player here, Matt Bradley, actually had one of his best games. He had been struggling the first 3 games in the tournament. He was averaging 26 coming into this. He had 20 in this particular game. And I loved his demeanor from the start. I think he came out, he was 4-4 to start him off well for San Diego State. He kept hitting 3-pointers there, but he had 21, 6, and 2. That was pretty huge for him. Mincy had 7 and 6 inside there. Butler, we just talked about his contribution, 9, 2, and 3. And the bench was phenomenal too for San Diego State. You look at Ladie coming off the bench; he had 12 and 6 and 3. They had Erupt come off the bench as well. They're big. He had 9 and 2. I think that's how you say it. And you had Parrish with 6 and 5 as well. So the bench as a whole outscored FAU. So that was critical in the second half as well. And San Diego State's moving on. San Diego State's moving on, and their defense is really, I think, what kind of led them to this victory here. A tough one for FAU. I think that again, they did everything that they were supposed to do. I think if they make that layup, for sure, it's game over. And the shot that Butler made, it was pretty incredible because it was great defense. And he really didn't even get a chance to step back because had he stepped back, he would have stepped out of bounds and the ability to just rise up just a bit more over the hand because when you look at it in the video, it was terrific elevation, just as you would teach in a jump shot. He had a great base under him, and defensively, there's really nothing else that you can do. Great offense will always beat a great defense, and that's exactly what happened here for San Diego State. So they are now moving on to the championship game taking place here Monday. The other game on the other side of the bracket, you had the UConn Huskies taking on the Miami Hurricanes in this one. And I had picked UConn. I thought that the key for this one coming in was that Miami, if they had a sluggish start, they would be in trouble. And what happened in this? Miami had a sluggish start. They didn't start off very well. UConn came in, and much like every other team that they've really played in the tournament here, they dominated and they won this game by double figures. And really, the deciding factor was Sunoco inside. Sunoco has been probably one of the best big men that I've seen in quite some time in the NCAA tournament. Taking nothing away from the big men that have played here as of late. Looking at Ben Charroll, looking at the young man from North Carolina that's played well. But Sunoco, the way he was able to dominate, he's averaging 20 and 10 in this tournament, and it looks like a breeze. And to add insult to injury, he was knocking down 3-point shots. I mean, the coverage, they were giving him the 3-point shot. He knocked down a 3-point shot. And that's tough. When they talked to Coach Larinaga after the game, he alluded to the fact that, you don't game plan for stuff like that when you have a 7-footer out there knocking down 3-pointers. And I think that was just the deciding factor. Sunoco and the way he was able to dominate inside. And then the bench play was phenomenal for Connecticut. You look at the fact that Jordan Hawkins was sick, with a stomach flu. He was still able to get 13 and 3 and just evenly disperse scoring throughout the guards and the forwards here for UConn. And they just really just tighten you up, play after play after play. And Miami really was never in sync, even though, Isaiah Wong had 15 and 1 rebound, but he only had 2 assists. When you look at the game that he had in the Elite Eight, he was so much more effective getting to the lane and being a decision maker as a passer. But every time he was in the lane, he was just crowded and they took him away. They also took away Nigel Pack. He did knock down some jumpers in this one. He did have to sit out, I believe, like 4 to 5 minutes because of a shoe that busted open or something like that. And not saying that necessarily would have helped him, but they took away him. Omir, 8 and 7. He was having a pretty good one, but he also had 4 personal fouls. And they had barely escaped the Elite Eight with him in foul trouble. And they needed him on the floor, especially with Sunoco down there. And they didn't have any answer for that. So this is a tough one for Miami. I think Miami for sure could have given UConn a little bit better run had they come out a lot like what they did in the Elite Eight. And then also to just they didn't necessarily defend as well as they should have as well. I think that there was a lot of defensive miscues for them as well. And that was something that's been uncharacteristic for them as well. Because I will give Miami credit. Yes, they were a great offensive team, but they were actually a pretty decent defensive team as well. And I think they were very decent as far as playing the passing lanes. And they really didn't get a ton of steals going there. Really just were just manhandled. The physicality of UConn, much like every other team, has really just it's been dominant here. So shout out to Coach Hurley and getting these guys going. This is a team that had 2 first round exits here. I certainly didn't pick them to make it all the way here, and they're here. And so shout out to UConn for doing what they're doing. And I think it starts with the bigs, which leads into now talking about the Final Four championship game here that is going to be starting here tomorrow. And this is the final game. This is it. And it comes down to UConn and San Diego State. There's a ton of people that have UConn picked in this one. I believe I have UConn in this one. I think it's going to be a lot tighter than what it's been. I think from a physicality standpoint, the one team that might be able to match UConn is going to be San Diego State. But a lot of that is going to come down to the fact of, is Mike Minzy going to be able to stay into the game? Is he going to be able to take away Sunoco? And that's the thing. And Nathan Minzy, excuse me. Is Nathan Minzy going to be able to take away Sunoco? Is Kashad Johnson going to be able to take away Sunoco? And Alex Caravan? Those guys are tough in the interior. The front court to me is going to be the deciding factor in this game. Whoever wins the paint battle will win this game. I have it slightly being UConn, and I mean slightly. You know what I'm saying? Because not to take anything away from San Diego State, it's just that they play so hard and they're physical. I think a lot of times I like that defensively. I'm very defensive minded when it comes down to basketball, and I love the physicality. I think the physicality can really take a team out of its mojo, so to speak. And UConn has been on quite a mojo lately. You look at their record that they have going against other conferences as well, and UConn certainly has the advantage there. The bench, UConn has the edge with that one. You look at Mike Parrish, you have Jadon Ladie, versus UConn's bench, which has been stellar here. Um, you know, I slightly have UConn's bench. I think that they're a little bit better. Both are a scoring punch here for UConn versus San Diego State is a little bit more defensive minded coming off this thing. And one thing that you want to remember is that UConn has been, I believe, undefeated, if I'm not mistaken, every time they've gotten to the Final Four. So you have that going for them. And then as far as the coaching is concerned, and you do a comparison there, that's even to me, because both Brian Dutcher and Danny Hurley are both coaches that they're coming from the son of coaches, basically. Both have basically put in the work to be here. You look at Brian Dutcher and what he was able to do and taking over for Steve Fisher. He has been able to bring that defensive mindedness to San Diego State, which is why they're here. You look at Dan Hurley. His brother Bobby Hurley was a terrific player for the University of Duke and would have had a terrific career for the Sacramento Kings had he not gotten into a car accident. But the one thing that you get out of them is toughness. And he brings that kind of toughness and grit to UConn. So this is why it's a little bit of a push, I believe, for for the coaching and this overall, with the intangibles and the fact that both teams and how they've gotten here. I like the underdog in this one for the intangibles because I believe San Diego State, the reason why they're here is because they have been able to execute on the intangibles. And intangibles are things that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. Intangibles might be diving for the loose ball. It is, making sure that you block the shot and you keep it in bounds to give your team another possession. It is coming up with the critical steal. It's coming up with the critical save. It's getting that trap that causes the other team to call a timeout, which they so badly need to hold on to. Those intangibles have been on display for San Diego State throughout this tournament, and I feel like they have an edge there. So if UConn gets into that type of game, the rock fight type of game, which we've described earlier in the Elite Eight and 16 and throughout all these tournament games, I like the edge to go to San Diego State. Now, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to go with UConn. I think that this is going to be a 75-70 game. I don't think that UConn is going to stomp San Diego State out. I don't think this is a double digit win. I think that they're within 10 points in this thing. And I think that this is going to go down to probably the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game, if it doesn't go down to the last second here, because San Diego State showed in this last round that they definitely have a lot of heart being down 14 and to come back and dig themselves out starting from the defensive end. That's tough. It's easy to play offense, but it's tough to play defense when you're down 14. A lot of teams get discouraged defensively or offensively, when it's not going, then defensively it affects them. That didn't happen with San Diego State, and that's a champion's mindset. I love that for them. So this is going to be a tough game. I think it's coming down to the last minute. Next up here, we talk briefly about the NCAA women's championship game that actually took place here today. LSU, give them a shout out. They won 102-85 here in this one. A shout out to Kim Mulkey. I think that's how you say her name there, Coach Mulkey. The way she was able to go ahead and take care of business here for LSU and really leading that program. I love what she was able to do here. I believe she was a tough guard back in the day, from what I understand, and just kind of doing a little research there. And the way she was able to lead these young women today and really shut down Caitlin Clark, excuse me, who I've seen her play a little bit. She's a lot like a Steph Curry. I didn't think that this game was going to be a 102-85 game. I thought UConn essentially would be here, or at least close to this point. I thought Notre Dame would be into this one. And I must say that looking at the women's tournament, I haven't talked about it as much on the program, but I think that it's been equally as exciting. The women's basketball tournament was very, very good. Very, very good skilled players out there, and getting a chance to see some of the elite talent from the women's basketball perspective. Wow. Incredible, man. So, that was a great game, but I wanted to give a shout out there to LSU. And moving forward, it's hard to bet against UConn for next season, obviously, with what they have built up as a program here. But this is two times, that, the LSU coaches actually come in and brought two teams to the Final Four here. So maybe this is the beginning of a little mini dynasty. I don't know. But shout out to them. I love the swagger that they have, pointing at the ring finger as time is kind of running down. That's nothing but championship swag out there. So I love that about LSU. But, shout out to LSU taking care of business here against Iowa there. So with that being said, that is today's show. And I just want to remind you guys that you can check us out here on YouTube. You can follow us at Real Talk Sports with Rico. And you can also follow us on Real Talk Sports with Rico at Spotify Podcasts, which was formerly Anchor. So I want to thank the sponsors out there who put sponsorship on the show, the people out there who've listened to the show and helped us drive content to the show. We definitely appreciate that. And so for myself, this is Rico with Real Talk Sports. We will be back with another show. You guys take care. Peace. Peace out, guys.